I know you've all seen the news. Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, are supposedly moving back to the UK, with Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, reportedly because the children are preparing to attend school there. People magazine dropped the exclusive, and suddenly every fucking news outlet is running with it. But my first question is, exclusive from who? Because as of right now, I have not seen Prince Harry, Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, or an identified Sussex spokesperson announce that this family is moving back to Britain. Yes, other news outlets are reporting it, fine. I still don't believe it. History has shown us that when Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, make major moves involving their family, they generally keep their cards extremely close to their chest. So something this enormous leaks, moving countries, Archie and Lilibet's schooling, their home, their security. That already has my eyebrows raised. But here's what really doesn't sit with me. According to People's own reporting, King Charles was only made aware of these plans on Sunday. You're telling me Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, are supposedly preparing to relocate the King's grandchildren to Britain, potentially enrolling them in school there, and the King only found out about it days ago? I find that very difficult to believe. A move this significant, especially involving the King's grandchildren, and their security in Britain, would presumably require serious conversations and planning behind the scenes. And that brings me to the biggest issue. Security. Prince Harry has spent years fighting over security in Britain. He has repeatedly expressed concerns about bringing Meghan and the children to the UK without adequate protection. And without proper security, this could potentially put Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet at risk. Meghan attracts enormous attention anytime she sets foot in Britain. Archie and Lilibet are the grandchildren of the King. So what changed? Has Harry's security situation been resolved? What protection would Meghan receive? What protection would Archie and Lilibet receive? Because if those questions haven't been answered, I have a very difficult time believing Harry is suddenly packing up his wife and his children and moving them back. And then there's Meghan herself. She knows exactly what the British media environment is like. She lived through years of relentless bullying and hostility. So forgive me if I need something stronger than anonymous sources before I believe she's moving her children back into that environment. Could this story be completely true? Absolutely. If Harry and Meghan announce tomorrow that they're moving back, great. I'll happily say the reporting was right. But unless the Sussex camp confirms it, I'm treating this as reporting, not a Sussex announcement. Because when you're talking about their children, their home, their safety, sources say isn't enough for me. And if the King only learned about it days ago, my eyebrows just went even higher. Are you buying this? Or are you waiting to hear it directly from Meghan and Harry? And that's the read. If you like your tea hot, share it, save your seat, and follow for more. This is the Notorious JTB, notoriously opinionated, signing out.
Quite the shocking news, I must say. But I've started seeing already people commenting, claiming that the last 5 years, that the Oprah interview, that Spare, that the Netflix documentary, that all of that just meant absolutely nothing. What? For the record, Harry and Meghan wanted their version of the story out there and not the tabloids being able to just write in a vacuum about them, making up stories, changing who said what or who did what, and then there being zero pushback. Of course, they wanted their story told. And the more I read comments about people not understanding this move that will be happening in September, I was like, wait a second. I remember their original statement that they had posted on Insta and then archived and posted on their Sussex Royal website. And part of that statement was, we now plan to balance our time between the UK and North America, continuing to honor our duty to the Queen, the Commonwealth, and our patronages. When we first read that, we thought, okay, so they'll be back in a few months. It ends up being 5-6 years. No big deal. They always wanted to come back. And now that we know that they're going because Harry wants his children in the same schools he went to. He wants his children, who are Prince and Princess, to have the same exact opportunities to make friendships and connections and network with the same exact people, well, that he did, because the most elite of the UK will be in those schools. Their children will be in those schools. And those children will go on to be some of the top people in the UK. That's clearly something that Harry wants for his children. Who wouldn't? The other thing that I don't think people are thinking about is that Harry still wants to reconcile with his father. And as someone who just lost her mother to cancer, who wishes I could have had more time with her instead of, I only got like 5 months with her. And Harry knows what type of cancer it is. He knows how bad it will get. And he wants to be there close to his father as much as possible before the end comes. And I think they've probably thoroughly talked this out and have either secured a place or are currently looking for a place to, a place that they will not have to worry about the press, somewhere that's they're going to have to use long range lenses to see them. I don't think that if they were worried about the press or whatever, that they would move. But they're doing this for personal reasons. And I will, like I have always done, fight tooth and nail for Harry and Meghan to do whatever the fuck they want. Even if that means something that doesn't truly make sense to the rest of us.
I'm shocked. I'm flabbergasted. So hi everyone, we have some major breaking news. So allegedly, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan, are set to move back to Britain. Personally, I never thought I'd see the day. And obviously, if this is true, they definitely had a joint conversation about it. I see a lot of people on Twitter right now tearing both of these two down. A lot of, Meghan would never, or Prince Harry has betrayed her. I don't think either of those are the case. And at the end of the day, they both love and respect each other, so it was probably a joint decision. I mean, I support their decision either way. I just think it has everybody thinking, what could possibly be going on back home? I saw this tweet and it said that King Charles gotta be dying because ain't no way. I just want to say that if you're part of their community, you should support them. I know personally for myself, if this is what they want to do and this is what makes them happy, I support them either way. And obviously we don't know their private life, so who knows, maybe they have rekindled the flame with the family and, want to go back and enjoy their time with their children. There are so many questions that we need answers to, but for now, we should just support them. If this is what makes them truly happy, I support it. I'm sure you guys support it. It's just a little shocking, that's all.
Squaddies, I'm going to be honest with you. When I first heard this news, I didn't jump up and start celebrating. I just sat there like, wait a minute. Harry? Meghan, are we sure about this? Because let's think about what these two fought for. They wanted space. They wanted control over their own lives. They wanted to raise their children away from the constant pressure surrounding the royal family. And they didn't just talk about independence, they actually built it. They left Britain. They created a home in California. They built their own projects. They made their own money. They started doing things without having to look over their shoulders wondering what the palace was going to say. So when you hear that they're reportedly coming back, of course some supporters are going to scratch their heads. After everything they've been through, why? And you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with asking that question. You can be a huge Harry and Meghan supporter and still have a moment where you're like, my brother, what exactly are we doing here? That's not betrayal. That's not suddenly becoming a royalist. That's called caring. When you care about somebody, you don't blindly clap at every decision they make. Sometimes you worry. Sometimes you question it. Sometimes you sit down with your cup of tea and say, I really hope they know what they're getting themselves into. And that's exactly where I am. Because we don't know everything happening behind closed doors. We don't know every conversation Harry has had with his father. We don't know exactly what is driving this decision. Maybe Harry wants more time with Charles. Maybe this is about Archie and Lilibet. Maybe Harry wants his children to experience part of the country where he grew up. Maybe there are 10 different reasons, and we're only hearing 1 or 2 of them. And that's why I'm not going to pretend I know everything. But I am going to say this. I hope Harry and Meghan know exactly what they're walking back into. Because Britain isn't just a location on a map. For Harry, it's his childhood, it's his family, it's his mother's memory. It's also the place where Meghan experienced some incredibly intense media scrutiny. That's why this move hits differently for supporters. We're not sitting here saying, don't go. We're saying, if you're going, please protect yourselves. Protect your peace. Protect your children. Protect your boundaries. And don't let anybody convince you that returning to Britain means giving up the independence you've built, because it doesn't. Harry and Meghan can make their own choices. They can live where they want. They can spend time with family. They can raise their children however they choose. And they can still remain independent. So Squaddies, yes, some of us are confused. Some of us are nervous. Some of us are staring at the television going, Harry, my guy, are you absolutely sure? But here's the important part. We're still with them. Supporting Harry and Meghan doesn't mean we have to pretend every decision makes perfect sense to us. It means we can have concerns, ask questions, and still respect their right to make decisions for their own family. So I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to wait and see, and most importantly, I'm going to hope Britain treats this family with the respect they deserve. Because if Harry and Meghan have decided this is the right move for their family, then Squaddies, we're right here with them. Just please, Harry, know what you're walking back into, mate. Now, Squaddies, this is where things get really interesting. Because let's not kid ourselves. Harry and Meghan didn't leave Britain because they woke up one Tuesday morning and thought, you know what would be fun, moving across the Atlantic? There was a reason they wanted out. They wanted breathing room. They wanted control over their own lives. They wanted to make decisions about their family without every move being filtered through the palace machine and the royal press circus. And eventually, they built exactly that. They created a home in California. They built their own working life. They launched projects under their own names. They stepped away from the system. And most importantly, they got something they had been fighting for, independence. So when reports now come out saying they're planning to spend much more time in Britain with Archie and Lilibet, I completely understand why some supporters are sitting there scratching their heads. Hold on, why are we going back? That's a fair question. But here's where I need the Sussex critics to calm down. Because some people hear Harry and Meghan are returning to Britain and immediately translate that into they're crawling back to the royal family. Come on, let's use our brains for 5 minutes. Going back to Britain does not automatically mean going back to royal duties. It doesn't mean Harry is putting the crown jewels back on. It doesn't mean Meghan is preparing for another royal walkabout. It doesn't mean they're moving into Buckingham Palace. And it certainly doesn't mean they're suddenly asking William for a job. That's a completely different story. If the reported plans are accurate, they're still living privately and maintaining their non-working status. That's the key point. They can be in Britain without becoming part of the working monarchy. Think about regular people. You can leave your hometown, move abroad, build a career somewhere else, and then decide years later that you want to spend more time back home. Does that mean you've abandoned everything you built? No. Maybe your parents are getting older. Maybe your children want to know where you grew up. Maybe you simply miss certain people. Maybe life has changed. Going home doesn't mean you're surrendering your independence. And that's exactly how I'm looking at Harry and Meghan. They can return to Britain and still say, this is our life. We make the decisions. They're not handing the keys to their lives back to the palace. They're not asking permission to exist. They're not signing themselves back into the royal machine. And this is where the derangers need to understand something very basic. Geography is not loyalty. Living in Britain doesn't make you a working royal. Sending your children to school in Britain doesn't mean you're joining the firm. Being closer to family doesn't mean you've abandoned the life you built in California. It's just Britain, a country, not a magical machine that automatically turns Harry into a working prince the second his plane lands. And honestly, I think that's what some critics cannot accept. They desperately want this story to mean that Harry and Meghan have failed, that they're crawling back, that everything they built outside the palace somehow didn't work. But Harry and Meghan don't need to accept that storyline. They know what they built, they know why they left, and they know the life they've created for their children. So if they decide Britain makes sense for their family right now, that's their call. Their freedom doesn't disappear just because they cross the Atlantic. And that's the point I want Squaddies to remember. We can question the decision. We can be nervous about it. We can say, Harry, mate, are you absolutely sure? But we don't have to pretend that returning to Britain means returning to the institution. Those are two completely different things. Harry and Meghan fought for the right to control their own lives, and if they're going back, I want them to keep that control firmly in their own hands. Britain can be their location. Independence can still be their lifestyle.
Squaddies, here we go. The news hasn't even had time to cool down, and the Sussex critics are already running through the streets screaming, they're crawling back. Back where? Somebody please explain that part to me, because apparently Harry and Meghan cannot make a single decision with somebody turning it into a story about their supposed failure. If they stay in California, they're irrelevant. If they work on their own projects, nobody cares. And now, if they spend more time in Britain, they've failed, they want their royal jobs back. Mate, pick a lane. Let's look at what is actually being reported. Harry and Meghan are not suddenly announcing a return to working royal duties. They're not moving into Buckingham Palace. They're not lining up outside the palace waiting for somebody to hand them a timetable. And they're certainly not knocking on William's door saying, Big brother, any chance we can have our old jobs back? That's not what this means. They're reportedly maintaining their private life and their status outside the working monarchy. So where exactly is this magical crawlback everyone keeps talking about? Harry is British. Britain is his home country. If he wants to spend more time there, particularly because of his family, why on earth should that automatically be treated as some humiliating defeat? And Meghan, she's Harry's wife. She's the mother of his children. Of course she may be part of that decision. And Archie and Lilibet, they're their children. If their parents decide they should spend more time in Britain, that's a family decision. It doesn't require some secret royal master plan. This is where the whole argument from the derangers falls apart. They're confusing being in Britain with being controlled by the British monarchy. Those are not the same thing. You can live in Britain and still run your own business. You can send your children to school there and still have your own home elsewhere. You can see your relatives without becoming a working royal. You can walk through London without somebody handing you a royal schedule. And let's be honest, Squaddies, the idea that Harry and Meghan returning to Britain automatically means they've surrendered their independence is just ridiculous. Independence isn't a postcode, it's about who controls your life. And Harry and Meghan have already shown that they can make decisions for themselves. So I'm not buying this nonsense that they're crawling back. They're making a family decision. Maybe you agree with it, maybe you don't. Maybe, like many supporters, you're sitting there thinking, I'm happy for them, but I'm nervous. That's completely fair. But let's not allow the critics to write the story for us, because they desperately want this to be a humiliation. They want Harry and Meghan's return to mean, we were right, they couldn't survive without the royal family. No, you can return to Britain without returning to the institution. You can reconnect with family without becoming a working royal. And you can change where you spend your time without throwing away everything you've built. So to the derangers shouting, they're crawling back, take a breath, have a cup of tea, maybe sit down for 5 minutes. Harry and Meghan aren't asking anybody for permission to live their lives. They're still doing things their way. And that's exactly why this story is so interesting. Now, Squaddies, after all the shock, all the questions and all the conspiracy nonsense, let me bring this right back to where it matters. We're still here. Yes, I'm confused. Yes, I'm nervous. And yes, part of me is sitting here thinking, Harry, my brother, are you absolutely sure about this? But that doesn't mean I'm suddenly turning my back on Harry and Meghan. Not happening. If they have decided that spending more time in Britain is what works best for their family right now, then I respect that. Because here's the thing, we don't live their lives. We're not sitting in their living room. We don't hear the private conversations between Harry and his father. We don't know every discussion Meghan has had with her husband. We don't know what goes on behind those closed doors. So I'm not going to pretend I know better than the two people actually making the decision. But Squaddies, I am going to keep my eyes open, because I remember what happened before. I remember the headlines. I remember the obsession. I remember Meghan being picked apart over the smallest things. And that's why I'm watching the British press very closely. Because if this family is coming back, Britain needs to show them that things can be different. Don't turn Meghan into a daily headline. Don't chase Harry and Lilibet around. Don't turn every school run into a media event. Don't start dissecting every photograph like it's the Zabruda film. Give them some breathing room. Harry deserves to be able to see his father without the entire media circus following him around. Meghan deserves to feel safe. Archie and Lilibet deserve to grow up without strangers constantly trying to turn their childhood into entertainment. That's what I'm asking for. Nothing crazy, nothing unreasonable, just basic respect.
And I know some supporters are frustrated. I get it. You fought alongside Harry and Meghan when they were building their new life. You watched them leave. You watched them create something independent. So hearing that they're coming back can leave you thinking, why are we going back to the place we worked so hard to escape? That's a fair question. But don't let that frustration turn into anger towards Harry and Meghan. And definitely don't let it turn us into the very people we've been criticising. We can disagree, we can worry, we can question the decision, and still say, Harry and Meghan, we're with you. That's what real support looks like. Not blindly cheering, not attacking them the moment we don't understand something, just giving them the space to make their own choices. So if Britain welcomes them with respect, privacy, and a little bit of common sense, fantastic. I'll be the first one cheering. But if the old circus starts warming up again, we're going to have a conversation. Because Harry and Meghan may be coming back to Britain, but they are not coming back to surrender their independence. And Squaddies, that's the line. We're still together, we're still supporting them, and now it's Britain's turn to show this family that coming home doesn't have to mean walking back into the same nightmare. Welcome them properly, give them space, protect those children, and let this family live. We're with the Sussexes. Thanks for watching, Squaddies. I'm your host, Miles. Love you all, thank you for the support, and remember, Harry and Meghan are doing life their way, and we're right here with them. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next episode. God bless you all, and have a blessed week ahead.